is Amanina binti Hisham with my number matrix 15DUB20F2031, and this is my team.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Amira binti Asri with matric number 15DUB20F2011.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Syami, matrix number 15DUB20F2019.
My name is Mama Afiq Danish Mirosli, and my number matric is 15DUB20F2001. Framing means to give shape and support to a structure by combining components in a building. Therefore, a frame structure is a structure having the combination of beam, column and slab to resist the gravity and other lateral load. Frames are generally used in building and are composed of beam and column that are either pinned or fixed connected, like trusses. In case of frame structure, the load of floor, roof and panel walls are supported by the beams, which ultimately transmit this load to the column. There are three basic frames depending on material used in construction: precast concrete, steel structure, and timber structure. Precast concrete is a form of concrete that is prepared, cast and cured off-site, usually in controlled factory environment using reusable mold. Precast concrete element can be joined to other elements to form a complete structure. Structural steel frame can provide an alternative for prefabric structural component, but precast concrete can be more economical and sometimes more practical. Many buildings now include a mixture of both construction techniques, sometimes incorporating structural steelwork, inserting concrete and precast concrete element. Structural steel is a category of steel used for making construction material in a variety of shapes. Many structural steel shapes take the form of an elongated beam having a profile of a specific cross-section. Steel frame is typically consisting of vertical column and horizontal beam, which are riveted, bolted, or welded together in a rectilinear grid. Steel beams are horizontal structural members that resist load applied laterally to their axis. Modern methods of timber frame construction were introduced into the United Kingdom in the 1916. While not suitable for every construction situation, timber frame construction has its own range of strengths compared to alternative material, the most appealing being the quick assembly time due to the ability to prefabricate elements. Timber is a type of wood which has been processed into beam and planks. Any wood capable of yielding a minimum dimensional size can be termed as a timber. It is a stage in process of wood production. Timber are used for the structural purpose. Those wood which has adapted for building purpose are timber. Columns are vertical structure elements where the load is transferred parallel to the longitudinal axis as compression and sometimes extension. Columns are used to support floor, roof beam, and the load columns of the floor above. The columns at the bottom floor of a tall building must carry the accumulative weight of all the floor above. So column plays an important role in wall load transfer mechanism, and without it structures does not exist. Columns are typically constructed from materials such as concrete, timber, steel, and so on, which have a good comprehensive stretch. The floor beam is commonly used in houses that have a basement. The beam is usually supported along its length with adjustable jacks that rest on cement footing and are adjusted upward to secure the floor beam and prevent it from sagging. It is common for a builder to use a floor beam only on the first floor of a building and rely on interior walls and other inside features to give support to any subsequent upper floor. These beams are usually of steel, precast concrete, and wood. A roof beam is a load-bearing member that is integral to the strength of the building. It supports the floor or roof above while adding integrity to walls. A roof beam will be the thickest and most important element of a roof or levels within a property. Typically, roof beams are made of timber but can also be made from steel and concrete. Roof beam may support the weight of the floor above or roof, but they are also a vital component in structural integrity. Roof beam attach to walls and stop them from spreading or leaning in.
I will continue with my topic, which is column. There are three types of materials in making columns. The first one is steel column. Steel column can take a lot of compressive load without having to be constructed by casting concrete with reinforcement or cementing a pile of bricks together. Conditions of an ideal column. When considering how to design a steel column, here are the conditions that contribute to the ideal column. Initially straight, axially loaded, uniform stress, uniform material, and no transverse loads. Types of steel columns are circular hollow section, welded box section, hot roll hinge section, welded cover plate on hot roll hinge section, rectangular hollow section, welded hinge section. When planning the installation of building column and their appropriate dimensions, the ratio of the length to the diameter is very important. This is called the slenderness ratio. There are some important strength-related issues regarding the slenderness ratio. If the slenderness ratio is less than 10, then the column does not require reinforcing steel and may simply be filled with concrete. If the slenderness ratio falls between 10 and 15, then the column should be reinforced with steel. This must be extended below the column into the concrete foundation and out of the top of the column into the member the column is supporting. If the slender ratio bigger than 15, a structural engineer needs to be consulted. Place the base component in the correct position on top of a solid foundation base which is sufficiently strong to carry the intended load of the column. If the base is not fully level, then use a thin layer of river sand and cement to ensure the base sits solidly on the concrete base. If the column is to be reinforced, then drill through the base component into the foundation material and insert steel reinforcing starter bars approximately 600 mm long into those holes. The lower part of the starter bar should be coated with general purpose epoxy before inserting into the holes so that they will rigidly adhere to the foundation material. Once the steel is in place, fill the base with good quality concrete and allow a day for the base to dry. If the steel reinforcing is being used, erect this now and tie onto the starter bars. Erect the building column so that it stands vertically on top of the column base. Install support bracing or struts that will hold the column vertically in position while the concrete is being poured. The struts should be sufficiently strong to prevent the column from moving or tilting. Once the column is secured in a vertical position, it is ready to be filled with concrete. The concrete should not be very wet or runny. A drier mix that is still workable is recommended. Technically, the concrete should have maximum slump of 50 mm. This is achieved when 31 liters of water are added for every 50 kg of cement, 1 bag, used in the concrete mix. The concrete in the column should be poured in with about 1250 mm at a time. Use a vibrator to ensure the concrete settles properly. Particularly if steel reinforcing is being used, do not hammer the sides of the column to make the concrete settle as this will damage the column. Pour the subsequent lift of concrete no less than 6 hours following the previous lift. If any concrete spills on the outer surface of the pipe, clean it off before it hardens. The struts or bracing can be removed after 48 hours. Second is timber. Timber columns are designed for house builders, reception areas, and refurbishment properties. They provide an aesthetic appearance, creating a feeling of space and openness. Columns greater than 170 mm in diameter are manufactured hollow and can be supplied ready for splitting, allowing the disguising of ugly steelwork or services. A range of tops and bases complete the range, and others offer the user various styles for contemporary for classical. The user can paint MDF columns but polish timber columns. I-beams or double T profiles are wood-based composite elements consisting of two flanges and intermediate web which are glued together. They are intended to be used as load-bearing parts of building constructions. The utilization is limited to service Class 1 and Class 2. The top and bottom flanges are mainly made of strength-graded structural timber, glued laminated timber, or laminated veneer lumber. The webs are mainly made of oriented strand board-in or hard boards. Types of timber columns are parallel striped lumber and laminated veneer lumber. Lastly is precast. The use of precast columns provides various benefits. For example, in nearly all types of building, from multi-story to single-story, precast columns reduce the construction time by increases the building speed. These advantages are mainly realized because ready columns are delivered to the site for erection. The building process is often easy since the construction sections are ready and complete with cast-in components for fast connection to building elements, beams, and footings. Besides, using these components lowers the associated construction costs. Moreover, hollow core concrete columns provide high strength because they are lighter compared to the solid types. The specifications are minimum concrete grade C35, concrete cover to main reinforcement 35 mm, fire resistance 2 hours, characteristic of steel reinforcement high. Connection should be designed to suit the architect and structural requirements and to be checked and approved by competent person. The types are edge columns symmetrical in one direction, internal columns symmetrical in all directions, corner columns not symmetrical at all. Precast concrete columns may be single or double story high. The method of connection to the foundation and to the column above will vary with manufacturer. Foundation connection may be via a base plate connected to the column or by reinforcing bars projecting from the end of the column passing into sleeves that are subsequently filled with grout. Alternatively, a column may be set into a preformed hole in a foundation block and grouted into position. Column connections may be by threaded rods joined with an appropriate connector, with concrete subsequently cast round to the dimension of the cross-section of the column. Alternatively, bars in grouted sleeve, as described above, may be used. This results in a thin stitch between columns, while the previous approach requires a deeper stitch. Connections may be located between floors, at a point of contraflexure, or at a floor level. Columns are provided with necessary supports for the ends of the precast beams. There will also be some form of connection to provide beam-column moment connection and continuity. For interior columns, this may be by holes through which reinforcing bars pass from one beam to another. For edge columns, some form of bracket or socket is required. During erection, columns must be braced until stability is achieved by making the necessary connections to the beam and slabs.
Now I want to tell about the floor beam. Function of a steel. Steel can provide a high degree of continuity over the life of the building. A steel floor system also means less labor and cost. For example, the simplest solution of a downstream solid weight I-section beams as opposite to truss means favor structural elements, less fabrication, favor surface to be fire protect, and less to time to design. The timber is used to refer to the wood at any stage after the tree has been felled. This can include the raw material. Also know a raw timber of the processed material to make a floor beam. Precast concrete beam and slab is a construction system comprised of a precast concrete element that span its module between walls and are tied together with rubber that loose and a thin cast it can in place. Specification about steel. A steel beam support a concrete slab or building. The beam are placed at 8 to 0 on center. It's shown the dimension of the concrete slab beam assembly is also shown. Determine the deep load of the concrete and steel beam assembly in pound per square foot. Specification about a timber. All timber and labor specific are used without preservative treatment shall contain minimum if 75% hardwood on any diameter of any side of edge measured at the point where the greatest amount of spare wood occurs. Now about the pre-stressed hollow cap slab is predominantly used on first and sub-square floor. Topped with additional thermal properties, we achieve slab are increasingly installed at ground level. This 1.2 meter wide slab can span up to 9 meters depending on the load applied. By using the weak cast method of manufacture as opposed the extrusion concrete decor is formed using polycrete formers and are solid concrete. And now types of a steel have many types. An example, two types of steel: slim deck and slim floor. Types of timber: wood block and pocket flooring. And now types of briquettes, composite beams and frame system. Now installation of steel. First, place and adjust unit in final position prior to permanent fastening. And 2, install in straight container raw with rib at night angle to supporting. 3, allow rib to be straight with 1/4 inch in overall length of decking. 4, locate and join over supporting members and ensure no less than 2 inch. 5, provide decking continuous over opening that are not surrounded by perimeter safety cable. And now installation about the timber. First, remove the inside system floor and use structural flooring net at 19 to the joist and fix into the joist or replace the additive board or sheet to make exciting floor structure sound, or if the exciting floor is not made structure sound, use structural flooring at 19 to the joist and fix throughout the existing floor and into the joist. Now installation about briquettes. Preparation and construction on a seafood foundation, ground beams and ground floor. Stump bar ready to connect with briquettes columns. 2, launching of briquettes concrete column and beam into position. All briquettes components must be proper during installation. Installation of briquettes concrete half slab or precast slam must be provided during installation. Casting of concrete topping in single operation. And now, this is an illustration.
Hi, I am Nur Amira. So here I will continue share with you guys about the last structure that is roof beam. I will start with some of the function for each material. Everything of course have a function. So the precast concrete function is when we use this material for roof beam, we can reduce the spread of fire while burning occur in building. Also can allowing contractor to plan and budget a lower cost. The importance of precast concrete is can give a support to a huge building, at the same time to make sure that roof beam arranged orderly. For timber, as you all know, is not strong like a steel and precast concrete, but timber still can withstand a lot of pressure. This material is suitable for small buildings such as huts, chicken coops, and other. Also can retain unique element in the frame structure of a building. The last function is for steel. Steel roof beam can secure the structure from harsh weather conditions. Also, this is used to support the weight of roof in a building. Sometimes, bigger and heavier steel beams called transfer beam are used to support the cumulative weights. Next, I will continue with the second element, that is specification. For the precast concrete, the surface should be uniform in color and texture. All the cement and other material used in the manufacture roof beam must be sourced from approved sources during the manufacturing period. For timber, the softer timber may require steel for structural support, and it can be incorporated either visibly or invisibly into a roof beam. Any design for a timber roof beam should be verified that is fit for purpose by a qualified structural engineer. The last one is steel. Steel has a vertical section in the roof beam and is called a webs, while the vertical and horizontal section is called a flange. The level of thickness for steel roof beam is determined and constructed according to the types and size of the building. Here, there are few of type for each material, such as for precast concrete have a rectangular beam, L-shape, and inverted T-beam. For steel have a hot roll section, welded I-beam, and welded special shaped steels. And for timber is hanging beam and strutting beam. So this is the example type of timber roof beam. Picture on top is hanging beam, and the below picture show the hanging beam and strutting beam. For hanging beam is generally a deep timber beam located perpendicular at 19 degrees, and the function is to reduce the span of shielding joists. Next, strutting beam used in many ways and location in a conventionally framed roof. This function is to support the roof members. Now, we move to the installation work for this roof beam. For precast concrete, this material is ready to use, so it makes the installation work easy. We have to provide machinery such as a crane because precast concrete is fragile and need to handle with care. Also, mortar is needed. For timber, it starts by making roof frame according to the shape, size of the selected roof structure. To install this material, we have to use suitable machinery, but we can also install without heavy machinery when the weights are small. Next, the connection used is a metal bonding plate. For steel, easy to install because of the low weight. Also, we need to add an insulation layer over it above, which still can be installed easy. So on this slide, I want to show you example roof beam for timber, precast concrete, and steel. Lastly is advantages. For precast concrete is more resistant to adverse trade. Timber very versatile and compatible with other structural products. For steel, fire retardant coating render steel roof visually indestructible by fire.
So the conclusion is structural framing is the one of the most important aspect of a building. The purpose is to ensure that the construction is strong enough to withstand all the weight placed on wall, roof, and any else. Framing plan begin at design and engineering time during the development stage. Next, steel is known to be a highly durable metal. Steel frame construction can withstand all kinds of external pressure such as earthquake and thunderstorms. A well-construction steel frame building can last 10 up to 20 years. Steel is highly flexible and can be easily turned into any shape as desired. Precast concrete structure provides superior resistance to fire, natural disaster, insect, and moth. Like no other building material, it's resistant to rain, wind damage, cracks, provide lower maintenance and insurance costs. Lastly, timber is one of the few natural building material which has a lot of advantage. Generally, timber is non-toxic, does not leak chemical vapor into the building, and is safe to handle and touch. It also means that as timber age, it does so natural. So that's all from us. Thank you for watching. Bye bye and Assalamualaikum.